Oh, good morning, everyone. Again, I am Melvin Mina Corpuz, and I think you know me as Maestro Melvin. And our topic for today is all about characters in young adult literature. And without further ado, let's go straight into our discussion. As I've said earlier, our topic for today is all about the characters in young adult literature. But let's define first what is character. A character in literature is a person, animal, being, creature, or thing in a story. And what does the characters contributes in a story? Characters serve as a driving force in a story. The characters create and push the plot forward. Readers can experience the world that the writer created through the character, both from the way that the characters interact with their environment and the way that the characters view their environment. The young adult readers were in the stage where they reflect by the things they mostly see and feel. They will see themselves in this situation. Even though the story is fiction, they would fit their feet, especially when it is relatable in their real life situation or scenario. Now that we know the meaning and the importance of the characters in a story, let me ask you, how can we know if the characters in the story were effective? Let's try to evaluate the characters in a story for young adults. This story or book is a personal favorite, and this is the story of The Little Prince. The Little Prince is written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was born on June 29, 1900s and died at July 31, 1944. He is a French writer, poet, aristocrat, journalist, and a pioneering aviator. Let's now move on to the plot of the story. Based on the story by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, this fable begins as a pilot makes a forced landing on the barren Sahara Desert. He is befriended by a little prince from the planet asteroid B612. In the days that follow, the pilot learns of a small boy's history and planet-hopping journeys in which he met a king, a businessman, an historian, and a general. It isn't until he comes to Earth that the little prince learns the secret of the importance of life from a fox, a snake, and the pilot. Let's talk about now the characteristics of the main characters in the story. The Little Prince. The Little Prince is a child with golden locks and a laugh that sounds like a lot of little bells. He is thoughtful and curious and never lets go of a question once he has asked it. Feeling sad and lonely, the little prince leaves his tiny planet in a quest for friendship and to learn what is important in life. His interplanetary travels show him the foolishness of grown-ups who have forgotten what is essential and are consumed by pointless matters. Then on Earth, he befriends and is befriended by a fox who shares with him the secret of seeing with his heart and not with his eyes. The little prince learns that what is important cannot be seen. The narrator or the aviator. When the narrator is 6 years old, he aspires to be a great artist. His first endeavor, however, fails to impress the adults in his life, and they encourage him to do something more sensible. So he becomes a grown-up and a pilot concerned with serious matters. Through his encounter with the little prince, the narrator learns the secrets of friendship and how to see the world anew. With childlike wonder, he learns how to look with the heart beyond outward appearances and to divine what is essential. The Rose. The rose is a flower that mysteriously blooms on the little prince's planet, asteroid B612. The little prince believes the flower is unique in the world and grows nowhere else but on his planet. She is vain, proud, and demanding. But she is also capable of quiet sweetness and is enchanting to the little prince. However, she fails to show any sense of affection or appreciation for all the prince does for her, which makes him feel terribly lonely. She is the reason he leaves his planet to search for a cure for loneliness. The Fox. The second inhabitant of Earth that the little prince meets is the fox. He appears seated under an apple tree. The fox is wiser than any other being the little prince has encountered so far. He counsels the little prince on the ways of love and friendship, beginning with the lesson on what it means to care for and need someone.
The fox then shares the secret of how to clearly see and love one another. It is only with one's heart that one can see clearly, he explains. What is essential is invisible to the eye. He also cautions the little prince that he is responsible for whomever he tames. The snake. When the little prince falls to earth, the snake is the first inhabitant he encounters. The creature is as pale gold as the sand of the Sahara Desert he inhabits. Though thin as a finger, the snake is nonetheless dangerous, an agent of death. With one bite, he can carry you farther than a ship, meaning into the afterlife. Yet, he recognizes the essential innocence and purity of the little prince, so rather than harm him, the snake offers to help the prince if and when he wishes to return to his planet.
Now that we have discussed the characteristics of the main characters, here is the question. Are the characters' emotions, actions, thoughts, and words believable, credible, and consistent? I will leave the question to you. I want you to answer it personally. Well, base your answer to what we have discussed, okay? Let's now move on to the second question. Are the characters realistic rather than contrived? But before we answer that, let me introduce to you the other characters in the story.
The Vain Man. The vain man is lonely and craves admiration from all who pass by. However, only by being alone is he assured of being the richest and best-looking man on his planet. The Geographer. Although the geographer is apparently well-read, he refuses to learn about his own planet, saying it is a job for explorers. He recommends that the little prince visit Earth, and his comments on the ephemeral nature of flowers reveal to the prince that his own flower will not last forever. The Businessman. Too busy even to greet his visitor. The businessman owns all the stores, yet he cannot remember what they are called and contributes nothing to them. Although the little prince comments on the oddity of the grown-ups he meets, the businessman is the only character the prince actively chastises. The King. On the first planet the little prince visits, he encounters a king who claims to rule the entire universe. While not unkindly, the king's power is empty. He is able to command people to do only what they already would do.
Let's answer the question now. The characters in the story were all basically made up, but the lesson they carry throughout the story were all relatable and realistic, especially in adulthood. Do the characters complement each other? Let's focus on the journey of the little prince. The way the little prince interacted with all the characters through his questions complemented their metaphorical responses to the little prince's curiosity, which reflected to the idea of adulthood in the book.
Do the characters contribute to the action and credibility of the plot? It is all about the way how the little prince interacted with all the characters which complemented the plot of the story. With all the lessons he learned from all the characters in every planet he went to, made the little prince realize the reality in his tiny planet.
To the last two questions, I asked several people to answer them. By this, we can see the difference in their perspective and how they perceive the difference of every characters in the story. The question is, what will the readers learn from the characters? Let's first hear it from Ren Sigua.
Each character represents well the truth within us, like the prince himself is the innocence that we once had. Then the rose who took advantage of the prince's kindness, he came after to his planet knowing that his rose isn't unique. The little prince said, "You are beautiful but you're empty." I think this implies that even you're the most beautiful person, you can still feel the void sensation because you don't have anyone. A remarkable quote in the book said, "All grown-ups became children but only few remember it." It just means that we change so much that we forget to cherish the moment. What amazing about the characters, no matter how many years have passed, it's really timely. Every characters really represent their roles well. This might become a speech if I state them one by one, lol. Nevertheless, I'll leave the famous quote in The Little Prince. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. There are moments that we need to feel it just to see it. That would be all.
Thank you, Renz. And lastly, let's hear it from Marvin Valencia.
I personally think that the reader will learn the essence of indifference and the weight of the innocent stripping off from the little prince. I mean, the interaction of the little prince with the different inhabitants of each planet he visited emphasizes the way we all learn from our diversity. The realizations he had accumulated from his trips practically constructed a foundation of maturity, and along the process, his innocence was wearing thin with every encounter he had, which is an inevitable occurrence in growing up.
Thank you, Marvs. Into our very last question, it is answered by Jomer Valencia. The question is, will adolescents relate to or understand the characters?
Although it is in the form of a children's book, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's novella The Little Prince is truly a memorable masterpiece to readers of all ages. It illustrates the attention to small details and curious minds of children for the adults to understand. Of course, adults were once children too, but as the time goes on, they tend to focus more on things the world thinks truly matter, such as politics, mathematics, linguistics, etc. Adolescents, on the other hand, are in between children and adults. At that stage of our lives, we are torn between having childish interest and getting ready for bigger responsibilities before being fully grown adults. Since adolescents do not completely understand the real world yet, their thinking capacity still revolves around the fact that they are still too young, imaginative, curious, and wide-eyed. In conclusion, The Little Prince is a self-help book for adolescents. It shows the proper preparation before entering adulthood and what to expect. Adult things such as politics, geography, linguistics, etc. are concepts that are too vague for the young ones, while artistry and self-expression are forgotten concepts for the grown-ups. The adolescents might as well take it as a cautionary tale that tells them not to be less artistic, imaginary, and self-expressive in a world where numbers and money-earning industries only matter and stoicism restrains our emotions. The story also has insinuation of the Generation Z versus Baby Boomer narrative. How dense the adults are when it comes to new ideas and how outspoken and expressive Gen Z kids are.
Thank you. Before we end our discussion, I want to leave a quotation from the story of the Little Prince. It is said here that, "It is the time that you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important." Thank you everyone for listening. Maestro Melvin is out.